The changes here, Ted, are causing some confusion. And this is why we want to bring you in to clarify some of this stuff, specifically, like you said, paragraph 3 and 16. Can you go over what the confusion is, how to avoid this?
Well, let me take a step back. The Forms Committee revised the Rhode Island Purchase and Sales Agreement in late 2020 to add some what they thought to be beneficial changes in terms of wording, in terms of make it clear for the disbursement of like when the funds for a deposit are dispersed or tendered, when is a contract legally binding? Because lots of times these days, the PNS is signed through a DocuSign, and the question is it a binding agreement if you don't have the deposit in your possession, in the listing agent's possession? But there is, and it is somewhat ambiguous because, and I want to point everybody's attention to Section 3 of the agreement. And it says time is of the essence as it applies to Section 3 of the Purchase and Sales Agreement. Yes or no? And Section 3, just for the audience, because I know they're not looking at the standard PNS, has the purchase price listed in it, and it has the initial deposit, additional deposit, and the balance due at closing for a total purchase price of blank, all in that section. And so, it's a newer provision. Typically in Rhode Island, we haven't had time is of the essence as to the timeframes included in the agreement. We haven't. And so the question has been raised, or what provision of this section is specifically affected by the time is of the essence language. And so, the Forms Committee, states that, their position has been, add this time is of the essence language in the agreement so that the buyers have an urgency to get the deposit into the listing agent so that the contract is bound. But, if you read this over and you realize that it doesn't specifically state that time is of the essence only as to the deposit. So it's reasonable to look at this and say that the time is of the essence language applying to Section 3 with all these other terms in it implies that time is of the essence is as to not only the initial deposit or the second deposit, but the balance due at closing, meaning that it kind of interplays with the closing date. The point that I want to make for the audience is that don't assume that this is solely for the deposit. I don't think it is. I think it does apply to everything in that provision, and I would find it hard to believe that a court would look at this and say, if you've checked off time is of the essence, that it's only as to the deposit. I think maybe a revision of this agreement might, be necessary, or at least a clarification that it applies only to the deposit, but right now, the way it stands, I think, you'd be hard pressed to prove that the way that it's written, that it doesn't apply to everything in that section, meaning the closing date.